Hello and welcome back to season 3 of the Health One podcast. Today I have the amazing Aok Nutrition, also known as Aisling O'Kelly first and then Aisling Fox now. I've been following this lovely gal for so long, and we actually met in a festival in Portugal this summer. It's so funny. But thank you so much for coming on, Aisling.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, so Gasmin, Orla met at 2 a.m. at a music festival. She was like, "Hey, you're in nutrition." I was like, "Excuse me, who knows me here?" But so gas, like,
it's so funny. So we're at that stage where we're like creatures, and it was after rain, and so it was just like, "Oh, don't look at me."
Yeah.
Oh, it's such a fun festival, though, wasn't it?
So good. I'm gonna go for the salt. Nothing like, honestly, that is like me and my absolute element, music festivals.
Yeah, a good boogie. That was my first festival, I think, actually, since after COVID. So I actually couldn't keep up though. I was like 3 days, Jesus Christ, I feel like I'm getting all the kind of hectic anymore. But it is literally good for the soul. A boogie is just, there's nothing like it. And I really love how you're a gal like that is able to go and have fun, and even though you know all the health, the nutrition, the science, what we should be doing to look after ourselves, you're not so, let's say, rigid with it, and you're relaxed and you understand the importance of de-stressing, letting loose, and all that good stuff as well. But for anyone who is living under a rock and doesn't know about you, would you be able to fill us in a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yes, of course. So I'm Aok Nutrition. You find me on Instagram under the handle. And I guess for me, I trained as a nutritional therapist. I qualified in 2014, and I've been working in my clinic since then. I'm very, very lucky that I grew up with natural medicine. So my mum is actually a herbalist and she's a naturopath. So for us as kids growing up, like, we literally just had herbs and potions and everything around the house the whole time. My mum was actually a nurse first, and then she jumped ship and changed careers. So I feel like because of that upbringing as well, from the medical perspective, I have a really good balance between both. Like, I'm obsessed with like biology, kind of like yourself. I love the science. And yet then, so I qualified as a nutritional therapist. And then 2020, I went back and I actually studied herbal medicine myself. And herbal medicine looks into things like Chinese medicine, it's Ayurveda medicine. It's really old, like it's only 3,000 years old, really traditional medicine, and it sees the body in just completely different ways. It throws biology and science on its head, and yet I love doing that side of medicine as well. And I think that's why we see such great results with the clients in my clinic, because we incorporate both the kind of the biology, the nitty gritty, the blood testing, and we look at things from like a Chinese medicine perspective. So I have a clinic in Dublin, in Portmarnock, and most of my clinic over the last couple of years, I've kind of just fallen into the hormone world, fertility, women's health, because it's just an area, I suppose, I was so passionate about. And I think, when you start working with people, you get, I think the same as you, like, you get so frustrated with how little knowledge there is and how important it is. So I think I just started shouting from rooftops, like, we need to know this. And I see other kind of conditions, but it's funny how people think I just do hormones, but I'd see someone for digestive issues and for all different kind of things. But I think hormones is an area I am quite passionate about. So that's me in a nutshell, I guess, at the moment.
Yeah. And I suppose I was listening to one of your podcasts and you were mentioning about GCB. I found that so funny because you were thinking of doing genetics and cell biology, and I literally did biotechnology. You were like, thank God I didn't do that course. And I was literally like, yeah, I did that course.
No way. And did you take anything from it now? Did you finish it?
Yeah, like, so it gave me the understanding of like inflammation, genetics, the microbiome, insulin, kind of how things work on a physiological level. So obviously, same as yourself, I was obsessed with biology and I just wanted to learn more about our bodies. I just found it so like shocking that people don't want to learn about their bodies and don't want to figure out like what's going on internally. We're so obsessed with the external and like what to do to achieve or to kind of succeed in life or to people please or whatever. But it's like, okay, well, how does your actual body feel, and what's going on with the pain that you're experiencing, and why is your energy levels low, and so on. So it definitely brought me to where I am today, but I could have done it in a much quicker route as well. But it's really funny. I remember looking like what you're saying, people saying about witch doctors with like naturopath. I remember after my college degree looking back and being like, I can't go back and do something. I've done a science degree. I can't go back and do something that's airy fairy or woo woo. And I suppose that's just the misconception that we have with naturopathic medicine, with herbalists and stuff like that. How has, like, I suppose because you understand the science and because you understand the holistic side of things, how has going down that route of your training changed your view on how we treat health?
For me, first of all, in relation to herbal medicine, so I said that I was brought up with herbs and I never knew it from a science perspective. So again, growing up, like my mum would say things like, you're being very pitta today. So pitta is a term in Ayurveda medicine, and pitta is when you're fiery and you're going to see things like people might be aggravated and things like that. And, my mum used to use all these words. So that for me, again, kind of real the woo-woo was just this different language that we spoke. And then when I actually went and trained as a herbalist, there's so much chemistry and so much science involved. Like I do a whole chemistry module. I literally was so thrown off. Yes, we did a Chinese medicine module. Yes, we did Ayurveda medicine model, but we did loads and loads of chemistry. We learned about this thing called phytochemicals, which is in food. It's also in herbal medicine. So there is actually so much science in herbs, which has kind of done actually a full circle for me then as well. That like I understand it from, like we call it energetics. Energetics is what's called in traditional medicine, like Ayurveda medicine, TCM, we call it energetic medicine. So in terms of energetics, I understand how the herbs work, but then I understand it from a science perspective as well. And when I see people, when I look at medicine now and look at like our generation, I feel like it's such a massive part that's missing, that it's like we've just lost this really, really important medicine. The way we use food, like people know, not news to us, like we tell clients to eat green vegetables. That's not the first time they've heard that. Like, there's not news from being like, broccoli's good for you. They're not going to be like, oh my God, are you for real? I didn't know that. So people have a good understanding of food, even though there's so much mismatched information in terms of diet and everything else. They know what food is going to support their immune system and what food won't. Like that is very easy to kind of look at something and kind of guess that. Whereas I feel like herbs has even more powerful properties than food does. And it's just an area that we have completely lost in the Western world. So I'm so excited to be a herbalist now and to be in my position where I feel like people can relate to me. Because like you were saying, like one of the gals, like we're at a music festival, like absolutely good for the soul. Like it's not as if I'm on my high horse here, like making my own herbs and doing this and doing that. And like I feel like I'm just like a normal gal, like to get me. And I can see this, and hopefully I can translate that over to kind of our generation, and people can be opened up again to this kind of medicine, because I think it's just so important.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's really like, I suppose, how we're trying to normalize meditation and yoga and journaling, manifest, and all these kind of things that you initially look at as, I suppose, because it's not traditional, because it's outside of the norm. I think we've been very close-minded and led astray from this kind of stuff that connects us back to nature and back to our intuition and back to the natural side of things, I suppose. Whereas I think now sometimes people are going the opposite, and they're kind of like getting rid of the Western side of medicine and just pretty much just rejecting it all. But I think we do need to come back to the middle. But I find that so interesting about how you said the energetics. Would this be kind of similar with, I suppose, how people would be like the energy of ayahuasca and Palo Santo and stuff like that?
Well, ayahuasca is a herb, it's a plant. So it's the exact same thing. So this is when I say energetics, it's like cacao is so popular now. People know about kind of what you're saying, ayahuasca is so popular. Herbal medicine has the same properties as that. Every single herb has their own thing to give. So I hand my heart wholeheartedly believe the nature has provided every single thing that we need. Like absolutely hands down. There's herbs that can kill us. There's herbs that can poison us. And I'm like, even in death, we have herbs to take if we want to die. And I know it sounds so dramatic, but there is honestly something, and like that in herbal medicine, when people come into me in the clinic, and I'm sure you've seen it as well, with quite complex clients, and you're looking at bloods, being like, geez, not much is coming up here, and this is so complicated, like this and this and this, and I give them this supplement, I have to give them this first. And herb medicine works on a different level. Like I can give 10 different herbs together in one bottle at one time, and they all work on different areas, but they work synergistically together. So it's like as if sometimes when you look at things from a different perspective, from an energetic perspective, I don't need bloods. I don't need to know your diagnosis. We treat your symptoms. You come into me with bloating. I don't need to know exactly why you have that. I might give you something for maybe bacterial overgrowth. I might give you something, maybe it's got to do with stress. Maybe it's got to do with low hydrochloric acid. I can put all that in one tonic, and that supports digestion, and that will help alleviate symptoms without having to have this diagnosis on paper. So that's the power as well of herbal medicine, is we don't have to always get this diagnosis. Sometimes people chase that, and they kind of like, people go for, I know I would listen to your podcast based on your digestion, like, you've gone for so many tests to be told, oh, you've IBS. And it's like, that doesn't help you. It doesn't give you any more information. You're in the same position as you were a year and a half ago when you started this process. Whereas herbs, oh, you're coming with constipation, great. These herbs are really good for this. We're going to support good health along the way. So it's just a different path people can go down. I think, again, like you were saying, people going back to basics, listen to their intuition. Why is this happening to you? What tools can you use to support your system? So yeah, that's just, a different way to think about it, I guess.
I love that. I love that. It is, I think it's really important that we do, like I said, we don't disregard the medical industry, but it's really important that we do open our eyes to this other, like what nature has to offer for us. Like, I think there's so many amazing stuff coming out for mental health now with like shrooms, with ayahuasca, and what's like being transformational for people, cacao ceremonies, everything. It's healing. Like nature is healing in itself. But it's really important. Sorry,
Yeah, I
go on.
was gonna say medicine does have a place. Like if someone comes to me and they have a really bad ear infection, I'm like, go to your doctor and get an antibiotic. But
Yeah,
if someone's coming to me every 2 weeks with a really bad ear infection, I'm like, hold on a minute now, what's going on here? How come you're chronically
yeah,
sick? So medicine's amazing for acute infections. Like if you wake up one day and you have tonsillitis, great, get an antibiotic. But if it's happening all the time, that's when you need to look at the bigger
yeah.
picture. Like, you know, so that's my kind of perspective on it. Like I think medicine's amazing. It's just not for chronic complaints. That's not like life-threatening,
Completely
obviously.
agree.
Like yeah.
No, completely agree. That's why that's pretty much what I've covered in the last season is like chronic fatigue, chronic stress, chronic inflammation, chronic period pains. You know, these things that are happening on a chronic basis are as a result of lifestyle, as a result of diet, nutrient deficiencies, and so on. They're not as a result of a random infection. So right now I have what seems to be belly, like bubbling in my stomach, and it's kind of lingering, but that is symptoms of as a result of an acute infection. But if it was something to do with my regular cramping from my IBS, that would be something that's very different to be having a look at from a holistic standpoint.
And tell me, sorry, is herbal medicine, do they use herbs in Bali? Like what's the medicine they use over there?
Can't really find. I found one that I was going to use when I was here last time, but she was like booked out for weeks. Then if you go into the pharmacies, it's actually really good that they'll offer you an alternative to what was the one I was trying to get before? I think I was trying to get melatonin or something before, and they were like, use this herbal supplement, it's really good for this. And at another stage I was trying to get something else for, I can't even remember what it was, but they will offer you the alternative to it. But sometimes I'm like, okay, let me look up the ingredients of that because I don't really know what I'm going to take here. Because I do think it's important to understand what you are putting into your body. Like you've trained for this stuff. So people can kind of run away with different things. So like for me, I remember looking down the road of Chesterberry or Vitex for my hormones. It was kind of like the thing on the internet at the time, not knowing that it could mess up my PCOS further. So it is important to, I suppose, if you are looking down the herbal or the natural kind of side of things, going down that route, really look like you would talk to a nutritional professional, like you would talk to a doctor with medication. It is important to kind of be aware of the altercations or the what's the word? Not altercations.
Yeah, like
Altercations, but
interactions. Yeah, no,
interaction.
yeah, no, you're so herbal medicine is so powerful. And even that in itself, and like the fact that herbs have such power can show how extremely are. And I always find it funny how doctors are so quick to be like, oh, herbal medicine doesn't work. And yet they're also, oh no, you can't take herbs with these drugs. I'm like, sorry, I thought you said just they didn't work there. Which one is it? Like, are they on interactive with drugs or do they not work? Like, you know, this way. So I find that quite a lot. They're quite quick to shoot things down, and they're also quite quick to like absolutely no herbs alongside. Now, obviously certain drugs, absolutely, but it's like that very funny middle line that they don't know, so they just shoot down everything. But no, honestly, like I actually 500 hours of clinical practice to be a herbalist. Like herbal medicine takes 4 years. It's not something that, you know, you do in a 6-week course, and like there's so much in it. So it does, when I see some people as well like recommend stuff online, I just literally like, you know, I'm like, you can't give that, or like they're so powerful. So yeah, I love that you're saying that as well, to kind of, and I know, listen, like don't just go in and pick up something like because you read it on Instagram. It's me posting it and I'm actually a herbalist, but like, you know, you have to be really careful with herbs, definitely.
And would there be any herbs that you would take yourself on a regular basis just for general health?
Yeah, oh my God, I would be dead without my herbs. Honestly, like I laugh at my mom being like, I genuinely should not be able to function at the capacity I function. I'm probably to my own detriment sometimes. So I would take, in our clinic, we do things called personalized herbal tonic. So we stock 300 different herbal tinctures. So you mentioned there chaseberry. Like that's one herb we have. We have 299 other herbs that we use, all for different things. So the way we work is we make up in one bottle, we put all your different symptoms. So for me personally, I would take herbs for my adrenals because I'm always up the walls like an absolute lunatic. So something for stress, my adrenals. I would, you know, ashwagandha. I would take a herb called ashwagandha, which is really good for hormones. It's also called an adaptogen, so it helps the body cope with stress. It's really good for sleep actually as well as ashwagandha. I would take herbs for digestion. I take herbs for, my skin's always quite dry skin. So you can put really specific things in. Coming into the winter now, I'm going to add extra herbs for viral support. Like, so there, I probably take up to maybe like 10 to 15 different herbs in one bottle a day. So yeah, oh my God, I'm obsessed. I would never not go. I've probably taken herbs every day, I'd say, for the last 10 years at least.
Oh my God,
Daily. Yeah,
wow.
absolutely obsessed. I'd be lost without my tonics.
Given that your mom started with this, did you ever think that you would be where you are today? When your mom's kind of maybe, I wouldn't say pushing the stuff on you, but she's maybe trying to educate you on this stuff when you were younger. Did you think that you'd end up in the same position as her, or did you think that this was just something that was so far removed from you?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I saw herb medicine a little bit as the woo-woo, kind of what you're saying. So I did, like, I went to DC first, it's sports science and health, and I did nutrition. And nutrition is very sciencey. Like, nutrition isn't, you know what I mean? Like, you learn, again, the chemistry of food. Like, it's not, you can't argue with that. Like, it's literally biology, kind of, you know, to a certain extent. And then when I trained as a nutritionist, then I was very much like, oh, I'm a nutritionist. And but then so me and my mum own our clinic together now, and as I started seeing more complicated clients, I'm sure, again, you've seen clients like, oh, what can I give these people? Like, I was using herbs more and more. And the longer you're in business, I think the more complex people come to them because you've more experience and things like that. And now I would consider myself more leaning towards herbal medicine than nutrition. Yeah, I don't think I ever saw myself as a herbalist initially, otherwise I would have done that first. But I think now I can appreciate it after being in business for so long, the power of herbs alongside nutrition. The way I describe it sometimes is like if you're trying to climb a mountain and you just can't get there on your own, and you have the good healthy foods and you're doing everything right and you're trying to help your sleep, and there's wind coming down, there's rocks and there's snow, and you're struggling to get to the top of the mountain, and herbs come along and they'll help you to the top. And once you're at the top, you can stay there yourself. So it's like if people come to you and they're like, I'm trying to do everything right, I just cannot. Kind of you're saying at the start, like, I just can't catch a break at the moment. It's just something, you know what I mean? I just need that extra support. So I find herb medicine quite good for that. Like, it's like getting people to a point, and you can say in herbs, like, I take a tonic, like I said, teaspoon once a day, and it's like me taking a personalized multivitamin. Like, that's it. Like, so a lot of my clients will text or email me when they're reordering their tonic, being like, hi Ash, I'm feeling great this month. I have a hay fever kicking back in, can you put something for that? And we'll tweak their tonic and put something for hay fever. But yeah, it's funny how it's something that I didn't think I would go into, but I'm delighted that the way it's worked out. But it is mad to think back now, like back 2012, I never would have thought I'd be a herbalist.
It is really interesting. I think once you start learning, you keep going further and further with, I suppose, your upskilling. I'm similar to you, not with herbs obviously, but with kind of the nervous system and mental health and trauma, and how our nervous system can be wired in a way that kind of perpetuates the inflammation or perpetuates us being in our fight or flight and continues that. And like you said, it's really important to, I suppose, what can happen is people can be like, why am I taking all these supplements? What's the point? It's a waste of money and this, that, and the other. But what's really important is that is something that is going to get you ahead, similar to medication, but it could be something that gives you that stepping stone in the right direction. So you're not feeling like you're pushing against a wall. You're actually going to get there quicker. You're going to be supported. Like, why not get supported? And it's really funny as well. I suppose what I used to do in the past was really try to go down the road of supplementing everything then. So I was like, okay, there's a supplement for this, there's a supplement for that. So I was taking tryptophan, I was taking ashwagandha, I was taking omegas, magnesium. I was taking Vitex at that time, not knowing I had PCOS. So there were so many things that I was taking thinking they were going to fix me and cure me. But it's really important to understand that that is the thing that's going to help move you in the right direction. But you have to come back around with lifestyle, nutrition, putting in self-care and all that good stuff as well after that too. Similar to kind of, I suppose, the pill would be like something that masks your hormones and doesn't really get you to the root. It might give you like a temporary measure, but it is important that afterwards you really work on your nutrition, your diet, your lifestyle, etc., to alleviate any issues you have. So I suppose if we kind of come onto the pill on that topic, the pill is something that I used to speak about for years, and it would have been something that I initially started following you for, because I would have started with IBS and kind of got into nutrition that way. And then I started to think that the hormones were connected to the digestive system, but this is when we didn't really know much about the gut-brain connection. Like, we've come on so much in terms of the availability of information that we have today. But I remember following your page the first time and being like, oh my God, somebody else gets it. It was like, this is all making sense. I fucking knew it. I was like,
yeah,
oh
right.
my God, literally there's like that kind of relief of, oh my God, because it can be really frustrating. And I've got a lot of clients who will go to the doctor and they'll be told they're kind of explained away with their symptoms and they're not really taken seriously. And it's, I suppose, doctors only have the pill to prescribe to them. So it's kind of like, this is your solution as far as the medical system can go for you. But recently I was talking about painful periods in my stories, and someone replied to me and was like, I didn't know painful periods were not normal. And it's like this, like years of conditioning, literally since we were in school, of like, we just get periods, they're painful, and that's that. There's so many other symptoms as well with PMS, but can you tell people listening, I suppose, what would be normal with your period and PMS and stuff, and what would be abnormal? Obviously there's so much more abnormal that's becoming the norm these days, but it's not normal, it's common.
I think the most important thing to remember your period is it's the most natural thing that we can get. And like, your body doesn't want you to be in bits every month. Like, there's nothing else their body does in pain. Like, if you were in pain when you're going to the toilet, you'd know, God, I'm a bit constipated today. Like, if your back was acting up, Jesus, what's going on with my back? And yeah, for some reason we get period pain and think it's normal, and yet we wouldn't see pain anywhere else in our body as normal at any other time. I think that's important. Just keep in mind, if you get a headache all the time, like, that's not normal. So I think that's important to keep in mind. At the same time, the way your body gets rid of your period is by causing contractions in the uterine wall. So, you know, to some extent, like, you're not going to go up and be like, oh, I feel amazing, like, geez, like my period, that's mad, and feel completely 100% normal. Like, you might feel a bit, I think sometimes maybe a bit heavy or a little bit achy, or but it shouldn't affect you. Like, I get up and I go to the gym and I have my period. Like, I would work a full day of work. Like, I'm never on the couch. People need to take days off work. People are chewing Panadol like for 2 days and they get their period. So I think it's like the level of what's normal and what's not normal. So I think if you have period pain, it's a bit crampy, get on with your day, you're grand by day 2. Once the heavy bleed is gone, that's normal. But if you're like, if we said, like, bed bound, if there's cramps 3 days before, I had a girl last week and I was like, oh, do you need to take painkillers? She's like, yeah, but just for the first 3 days. And I'm like, first 3 days of your period, you're taking Nurofen the whole time. I'm like, that's so extreme, because obviously the first days, we all know, is like kind of the heaviest day and when you're getting the most cramps. So for her, obviously there's something definitely else going on there. Like, you know, you shouldn't have pain for 3 days. And I think, again, like, I remember being in school and like be like, oh, my friend, you know, one of the girls, oh, it's Friday, the 4th Friday of the month, she has her period, like, she's off half day, like, and, you know, oh, I'm in bits, I'm gonna go home, get like a tub of Ben and Jerry's and stuff. Like, we all used to talk about being in bits of our periods, so we just thought that was normal. When we know now, and I think if anyone's listening to obviously Orla's podcast, like, period and hormonal issues are completely due to lifestyle factors 90% of the time, unless you have something like a really severe hormonal condition, like something like endometriosis, for example, which is, you know, pain linked with things like inflammatory tissue and not just hormones. But so I think, like, that, because we thought it was normal, we just kind of put up with it, where now we know that you can massively impact how your hormones are going to be. And I would say, and I'm sure you mentioned as well, like, think about your period like that monthly report card. It's your body's way of telling you, you did great this month, or like, you need to cop on this month, like, you were out too many times, you were not looking after your sleep. And that's how I see my cycle. Like, I completely look my period, and if I get my period, I got my period on day 23 a few weeks ago, and I was like, okay, Ash,
okay,
you
what's
need
up?
to
What's
chill
going on?
out. I'm like, that was a complete wake up call. I was like, oh my God. I was like, so we're like way too short of a cycle. I know, I was up the walls. I knew I was up the walls. And I'm like, I'm kind of, again, me taking my herbal medicine can't save you. And this is where supplements come into it.
Yeah.
You think you're doing everything. I was still taking my tonic. My diet actually maybe wasn't the best that month, but I was running on adrenaline. I was so stressed. There's loads of things going on. And that was such a wake up call to be like, oh my God, Jesus, okay, I need to actually cop on. So I think for us, you know, empowering ourselves to understand what's a normal cycle can just help us kind of like nip things in the bud before it goes on further. Because like you said there, even like inflammation in the body, I think your period is the first little stepping stone, that like, if your cycle is coming earlier, you're getting really bad period cramps, that's a sign that your body's not happy with something that you're doing. And that will manifest in other ways. It's not just your period. It'll be like, you know, a few months later, you might have really bad, like your IBS might be worse or whatever it is. So it's like a good little healing marker, or a health marker, I'd say.
Yeah, for sure. And I was the same last week, or 2 weeks ago, I had crippling period pains, and I was like, whoa, what the fuck happened? Why did I rewind time to when I wasn't looking after myself? But I think it's this lingering infection, because my friend had painful periods as well. But also, like, put my hand up, I was stressed. I was emotionally stressed. There's so much random ass shit happening in my life right now that I need to take into account. I need to get better sleep. I need to relax a little bit more, not be so stimulated, not be on my phone so much, because I suppose phone is work. So I'm justifying it that way. But I suppose what's important to understand is that with painful periods, a lot of people will think, okay, pain, symptom, treat the pain. And like that's obviously important. You need to not be suffering in pain to the point where you're nauseous, you're fainting, you're overheating, you're not able to cope with your day-to-day life, you're not able to work. But it's important to get to the root of that pain at the end of the day. A lot of people aren't aware that it is as a result of like inflammation, magnesium deficiencies, general stress. And that's really empowering, I think, when you learn about that stuff for the first time, because you're like, oh my God, I don't have to suffer. I don't have to feel like shit once a month, or like for 5 days of the month. And I suppose if we kind of bring it onto the topic of endometriosis, would you be able to, I suppose, explain maybe like your approach or how you would treat clients with endometriosis, maybe from like the kind of estrogen and inflammation side of things as well?
Yeah. So if people don't know, like endometriosis is, I think it's hard to put in a category of what it actually is. I would see it as an inflammatory condition more so than hormonal imbalance. I suppose hormones play a part in it, but it's mostly linked to inflammation.
Yeah.
It's also linked with immune system. Like we would see it as an autoimmune condition that a lot of women I see with endo, it's very unlikely for them not to have their mums who also had really bad period pain, or their grannies, or, and I find our generation are a little bit screwed over because like our grannies definitely not talking about their periods. Like they really weren't, do you know, that kind of way. Like, so it's like, how's your granny's periods? Having a second brief. My granny had 8 kids. She's basically pregnant or breastfeeding her whole life. So what were her periods like? Do you get me? It's kind of something that we're not that aware of. And so it's kind of like a genetic autoimmune inflammatory condition. And basically what it is I kind of think that it's hormonal tissue or uterine tissue grows in other areas of the kind of pelvic cavity. So it can be in your bowels, can be in your uterus, can be in the fallopian tubes. And I don't know if I read this a while ago about endo actually, and I found it so fat. It kind of was real aha moment, that makes so much sense. So it's the same tissue that will be found in the uterine lining. So what happens is it makes blood the way our period or the uterine lining makes blood. But there's nowhere for that blood to be drawn. So like when you get a period, we get rid of that blood, but with endo, there's nowhere for the blood to go. So it just forms cysts. I was like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. So basically my approach for endo then, I look at it from gut health. Absolutely, hands down, the most important thing is supporting gut health, because most people aren't aware that most of your immune system is actually your gut. So a lot of people with endo would suffer digestive issues, and it's great to help the digestive issues as well, but it's more supporting immune function, so your body can actually fight off or kind of help support inflammation, I would say, in the body. And then the other side then, we work at hormones, because while estrogen doesn't cause endo, it's not, like I said, a hormonal imbalance where if you have too much estrogen, you're not going to develop endo. You have to have those genes there beforehand. Estrogen makes things grow. So estrogen makes that tissue grow. So we look at diet, we look again at gut health, we look at, you know, I use quite a lot of herbal medicine. Herbal medicine is absolutely amazing for endo, really is. That's something, again, when I'm looking at chronic issues, I don't know how I would help clients as well without herbal medicine. Like most of my endo clients, if anyone's listening to this, they're like, that's me, I'm on herbs. Like most of them are taking herbal medicine for it. And again, it's really looking at, I think for endo, you need to come at that guns blazing. I tell my clients, go and get the surgery, get that tissue removed. What literally boils my blood and keeps me awake at night is that these women are told, yeah, come back in a few years for another surgery. It's nothing you can do now in the meantime. I'm like, it's disgraceful how specialists who see clients with endo are not aware of natural medicine and alternative medicine to help hormones. Not even natural medicine. You have to understand mechanism, estrogen metabolism. Like that's science. That's not me standing outside with a herbal medicine and a steel pot shouting in the full moon. Like, do you know that way? It's like, it's not like, I think that's what they think. So it drives me, even now my blood is boiling even thinking about it, but it really, really upsets me. I've had clients come to me and they've had 5 surgeries, or say maybe not 5, maybe 3. And they're told, right, I'll see you in a couple of years again. And I'm like, while we can't cure it, there's so much we can do to slow that tissue growth down. And it's all through, like we mentioned there, like supporting estrogen, supporting gut health as well. So that's kind of my approach. But everyone's very different as well. Like, you know, we use different supplements depending on what they need, and we use different herbs depending on what they need.
But I find that so, like, that topic is so important about like not accepting being pushed down the line, I suppose, from a diagnosis if you don't want to have kids. Me and Jessica Burke spoke about this on the fertility episode. Go back and have a listen. You'll learn so much. But it's similar in PCOS, that it's very much like, okay, do you want to get pregnant now? No. On the pill. You don't want to go on the pill? Okay, go on the coil, or there's nothing I can do for you. And I think it's being driven from this disconnect with the medical system on how, like, your body is connected. We don't have separate systems. And you'll go to a gynecologist, might not know much about PCOS, because it is obviously your hormones, is endocrinology, but endocrinologists might not know much about what's going on with your stress levels, or might not know what's going on with just other systems of the body, I suppose. And it's like they don't communicate, they don't connect. And it's like we are specialized in this. And what can happen is, as well, is just unfortunately there are some doctors out there that don't really keep up to date with the research and really kind of, I suppose, like, you know, yourself, you've done your nutrition course or your naturopath course. You don't know everything after you do that course. I didn't know everything after I did my nutrition course or my science degree. I have to keep learning. I have to keep growing. I have to keep up with the research. But it's just really important that you do advocate for yourself. If you do have some sort of chronic condition, that it's not your only alternative is to just keep going to, well, I suppose you can keep going back to the doctor, but if they're not actually giving you a solution and you're still having these recurring issues, that's when you need to try other alternatives. And it's unfortunate. It shouldn't have to be that way. And it shouldn't have to be the way of like completely then saying, like you said, it's important to tackle it from all angles, especially endometriosis, going to getting the surgeries and coming back around to help with the herbs, the lifestyle, the supplementation, everything as well.
I think it's just so important to ask questions. Like that was me. I'd be like, why do I have this and someone else doesn't? So even like with PCOS, you have high testosterone. Why do you have that? How come Barbara, your neighbor across the road, doesn't have it? She's the same diet as you. What's going on there? Like that's something that just kind of baffles me. I'm like, do people not want to know why? Like, the next level. And that's what doctors don't look into. You have high testosterone, grand, here's the pill to switch that off. Like that's what just doesn't sit right with me. And that's what we try and do. It's get to that next level. Why is this happening? And once you figure out the why, then you can put a plan in place to help that, because you can kind of, it's the first piece of the puzzle, basically.
Yes, preach. Yeah. It's that why. Like I'll have clients and they'll be going on the pill for whatever reason, and they'll still have the issue. And I'm like, okay, well, has it gone away? And they're like, no. I'm like, okay, so why are you on the pill? But obviously we're not going to bash the pill today for contraceptive reasons. If you're on it for contraceptive reasons, power to you, sis. But if it is for being told it's going to fix your hormones, it's going to fix whatever symptom, it's important to know that that's most likely not going to be a resolution of your symptoms. It can like suppress, giving you temporarily resolution, but it's not going to actually fix the issue or get to the root cause long term. Because if I give the example of PCOS, there's so many different drivers that can influence your hormones or can perpetuate the insulin resistance, like balancing your blood sugars, plain and simple thing that we all don't know that we could do for our hormones, stress management, you know, inflammation from the gut, etc., etc. So it's just really to understand that there is, and not to get overwhelmed by it, not to get overwhelmed. I think sometimes when we hear all this information for the first time, that there's like, okay, I need to do this, and I need to do this, and I need to do this, and I need to do this. And it's like, okay, where the fuck do I start? I suppose if you could give top tips for, say, without having the conditions for the average girl, for how they can look after their hormones.
Oh, manage stress, by far the most important thing. And so much easier said than done. So I kind of say, like, if you're up the walls, and like myself, like there's no way I can slow down what I'm doing at the moment. Absolutely so grateful. I have to run in the adrenaline run now. I'm high in demand in terms of like, not like I'm high in demand, but in terms of like my day-to-day life, I'm like, not like being like, I'm Aok Nutrition. I mean, my day-to-day life, I have to show up. That is I can't call in sick. So, you know, we have to figure it out. So I think, like we mentioned earlier, supplements are amazing in this circumstance. So magnesium, absolutely hooked to my veins. I know why I need it. It's not as if I'm taking it being like, Jesus, like I'm wrecked, like what's going on? Like I'm taking to support my system because I'm stressed. So I think, you know, look at your life. So where can you manage stress? In terms of other little tools, I would talk about things like manage your caffeine intake. Like I'm sitting here now, a little decaf coffee chatting to you because I have a really busy day. I'm not going to start my day off with caffeine when I'm up the walls for the day.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to go to the gym. I have a little schedule now, 1 o'clock today, I'll go to the gym. I'm not going to go and do a half an hour HIIT workout. I'm going to go and do a nice little weight session. So it's like, you know, because basically high intensity workouts can increase stress hormones. Caffeine can increase stress hormones, just in case people aren't aware of that. When weeks I'm busy, I'll plan my meals. So like, I know it sounds mad, but like my non-negotiables when I'm up the walls is 3 meals a day. And that might sound so basic to some people, but honestly, there's been so many times I'm my last priority when I'm busy. Like my clients come first, emails, little at the clinic, and I'm like, oh my God, it's 4:30, I haven't eaten. And I'm the hungriest bitch ever. Like I literally, then it's 4 o'clock and I'm literally having head spins and I can't type because my hands are shaking. And I'm like, oh my God, here we go. So stuff like that, I think, you know, you might not be able to control your kids or your mad life or your high in demand or whatever's going on, but control your other variables. Make some time for yourself. If it's meditation, if it's yoga, if it's reading your book at nighttime, if it's binge watching Netflix, whatever you need to do to kind of support yourself. So that's the most important thing I definitely think is stress, because you can eat all the food you want, but if you're up the walls, it's the balance won't be there. And then I think supporting gut health. I know it's a boring, like unsexy answer, but the way you get rid of hormones is you poo them out. So the first thing I look at, whether it's hormonal acne, whether it's fertility, whether it's PMS, sore boobs, fibroids, whatever it is, I will look at digestion. So, you know, if you're someone struggling a lot of PMS or heavy periods and your digestion's not good, like that is definitely the first place to start. Like you can again manage all the stress you want and be doing yoga, meditation. If you're pooing twice a week, it's not going to do that much alongside that. So I think they're the two most important things. Would you agree? What else did you throw in there yourself?
Yeah, I would say stress is the number one driver, because your stress can increase that cortisol that's going around your body, pumping the adrenaline, increasing the anxiety, affects your sleep then, and might affect your ability to either eat food because your appetite can be lower, digest food because your digestive system's fucked. If anyone hasn't listened to my podcast or my content so far, the gut brain connection, it is there, and it is not something we can avoid if you're not eating mindfully, if you are not slowing down, if you're not meditating. I suppose meditating is a broad concept, just breathing and kind of taking a step back and practicing your own practicing what you preach, Ashing.
And it's so hard, like even people listening, sorry for interrupting you, Orla, like both me and Orla have just mentioned how we both had like horrific periods this month or last month, and like we know what we're talking about. So I think that's important. Like we're not here on our high horse being like, girls, you have to this no. You know, if your period's bad, like you're out of balance, it's a constant battle. Like there is no end goal, and that's why we don't like preach 12-week transformation programs and stuff like that. Like I see clients and I'm like, you're gonna have a period for the next 20 years. Like my clients 20, 25, I'm like, there's no end goal here. Or people will be like to me, oh my God, Ashley was at a wedding last week. And I'm like, great, there's always going to be a wedding. Like what did you do the next day? Like what did you do on the Monday? And it's kind of giving people the tools to know what they need to do to support their hormones, and then not be as worried. Like I still have my wine and my takeaway on a Friday night. Like that's good for the soul. I wouldn't take that away. Yes. So I think as well, people, there's no perfection here. It's not like you're going to reach that point of like, oh, I've done it. I'm after making amazing hormones. It's a constant daily thing that we need to focus on. That's why it's so important that we understand it.
Yeah, I think that's what's really important, is looking at a majority of the time. So that's what I'll say to clients. Don't freak out if this month you didn't get a period, or you didn't ovulate, or your period was a little bit longer. Look at patterns over time. Obviously, that is a clue for you can look back last month. I suppose if you can trace it back to a period of your life, you've had a few weeks of not getting enough sleep, running kind of out the door, being very busy, jam-packed routine, maybe skipping a meal or two here and there. And like you said, that basic getting your 3 main meals is important. Like when you are stressed, go back and do the basics. Give yourself permission to just do the basics. Like release those expectations on yourself. A lot of people are like overwhelmed, and this can drive the all or nothing mindset where you're like, I'm not doing all of these things, so there's no point doing anything. It's like, no, get your non-negotiables, get your basics, and figure what they are for you. Like sleep is massive for me. If I don't get a good night's sleep, my digestion is fucked the next day. My PCOS symptoms can flare up as well. And because I'm getting out of bed later in the morning, that can affect the rest of my day, of how much more productive I'm going to be, or how much time I've got in the day, which means I'm not going to be as relaxed or whatever. You know, there's lots of these things that can connect to the next let's say drive whatever your stressors are, that if you just go back to those basics of whatever is most important for you, and they usually are the typical: learn how to fucking breathe, take a few deep breaths, practice regulating your nervous system, get your good night's sleep, drink some water, eat 3 main meals. If you can get your supplements in on top of that, amazing. If you can get outside and go for a quick walk around the block, even if it's 15 minutes, amazing. Don't expect yourself to be doing 5 workouts a week, showing up for your friends and get engagement parties or whatever. Just look after yourself first and foremost. Check in with yourself as well. A lot of people are so disconnected from themselves that they're not aware until it is coming to that stage of their cycle, and they're like, fuck, I have severe PMS right now, or I did have a shorter cycle this month or whatever. So I suppose if you were to give basic supplementation advice, what would be your, say, non-negotiables for female health and supporting their hormones?
I'm never mad on this question because I hate recommending one size fits all, but this time of year in Ireland is your vitamin D. Non-negotiable, take your fucking vitamin D. I don't know why it's on every bus stop in Ireland. That's something that just drives me around the bend. And I always say, like, calling vitamin D vitamin has undermined its importance. That, like, if we're talking about like, oh my God, you're lacking in the hormone, people are like, oh, my hormones. Like, people know the importance of hormones, I feel, more than like vitamins. So Vitamin D is more like a hormone than a vitamin. You need to take
Yeah.
it seriously. Works with your mood, your immune system, inflammation. So anyone listening now, and it's between October and March in Ireland, make sure you're on vitamin D. And we've mentioned a few times, magnesium, I think, is quite a safe supplement to recommend for people. And I think most people are probably low in magnesium. Like we get rid of it when we're stressed. It has, I think, maybe 300 functions in the body, everything from like anxiety and your heart's racing. It's great for sleep. It's great for muscles aches. It's really good for constipation. It's good for cramping. So I think magnesium is a very, very good supplement in general. And the other ones, again, I'm kind of reluctant to recommend. I think because everyone is so different. Maybe a B complex. Like if you're really, really busy, definitely if you're on the pill, non-negotiables B vitamins, because the pill does actually deplete your B vitamins. And I can say that B vitamins are for like energy, stress, and mood. So if I wake up first thing in the morning and I'm not in the pill, I start off with 100 B vitamins. If you were on the pill and you wake up, you start off with 50. So if we have the same level of stress that day, you're going to feel it more than I am. That's the best way to think about that. So yeah, definitely if we're on the pill, B vitamins. Yeah, everything else kind of like that. It just depends on the people. Like I use quite a lot of omega-3, which are anti-inflammatory oils. I'm obsessed with zinc. Zinc is one of my go-to as well, but zinc kind of one I prefer to see clients generally, less you're on the pill. Again, the pill does deplete zinc. What else would I normally give? They're kind of my go-tos, I'd say, and then everything else kind of just gets dotted in depending on the people.
Yeah, magnesium, vitamin D, and omegas would be the top three that I would recommend to pretty much everyone. I think magnesium is like a wonder supplement for, like you said, for the cramping of your menstrual cramps. Like that is a big, massive one. Another one, I suppose, is the raspberry leaf tea is meant to help with menstrual cramping as well. So, but yeah, it's about like even omegas can, because it can help with it's an anti-inflammatory. My words aren't working today, everyone. It's an anti-inflammatory that can help with lowering the inflammation that's associated with painful cramping of the periods as well. But I suppose we've got some questions. As if you have time, what is your self-care routine, if you can fit it in?
My self-care routine, like during the week, eat 3 meals a day. I guess I'm kind of more like, I'm kind of up and out. So I get up in the morning, I go to the gym, and then work all day. My evenings are kind of more self-care. Like I love getting into bed early, cup of chamomile tea, reading my book, like that kind of thing. Or I know this is really, really maybe random and not like traditional self-care, but if I'm going out, let's say like I'm going for like dinner and drinks the entire night, I love taking 2.5 hours to get ready. Like I'll sit there, I'll wash my hair, I'll curl it, I'll do my makeup. It'll take me like an hour to do my makeup.
Put the tunes on.
Yeah, I'll put the tunes on, I'll have a little glass for Prosecco. Like that for me is like, again, like love going out, like good for the soul, like that kind of thing. So yeah, that's one thing I would do. But I'd like this thing, talking about like meditation, stuff like that. I've tried it so many times, I just cannot get into it, even though I try. And I recommend it to other people. So it's not something I've got there yet, but I know like I preach about the importance of it to my clients, or sorry, not the importance, the research behind it and how powerful it can be. But here's me being like run around like an absolute lunatic not doing it. So sometimes we are our own worst enemy as well, I think.
So because you're in your fight or flight, it feels like something that's a bad thing to do. If you think about it, you're running from a tiger or a bear, and I asked you, you're in a room, there's a bear or a tiger, and I asked you to close your eyes and relax. Would you be able to relax? Absolutely fucking not, because there's a big scary bear there. So that's how your nervous system feels. It's that restlessness, the parts of your brain that are activated as well is going to make you feel like the thoughts are more active. And it's not what your body feels like is the right thing to do in this moment, because it is in that state of your nervous system. So it's so normal. I say that to clients. It's like, try not focus on getting something from it. We're always trying to achieve, we always have outcomes because we have so much shit on our to-do list that it's like, okay, well, this needs to be productive at the end of the day. When it's like, it's just giving yourself space. It's giving yourself a moment to breathe. And if anything, you're slowing your breathing down, that can actually help you. Like, instead of trying to get like spiritual enlightenment from it, just start off with the basics of breathing. And like, you don't need to do a guided meditation. You could sit there and count your reps or not your reps, your breath, and really just try to connect with yourself and calm yourself for a few minutes. Like that's really that's the absolute basic thing of meditation. And even with mindfulness, it's just trying to bring little parts of that into your day. Like you don't have to be like a Buddha during the day, but it's like, okay, when you're washing your hands, you can just focus on washing your hands instead of thinking about the shopping list or the next meeting that you have to do or this creative thing that you're doing for content. It's just really about bringing moments in where you regulate yourself and you clear your mind. That's really what it's all about. Well, yeah. So I have a question.
Mhm.
If you could go back to the school system, okay, and you could change how females are educated about hormones, sex, nutrition, whatever, what would you change? I know that's such a fully loaded question, but what would
I'd
you
love to.
change?
One of my goals, I'd love to create a, like, not even a curriculum. I'd love to take like a module for schools. I think if that's like in, we all have 101 to-do list things, but that's on my to-do list, one of my goals. I feel like it'd be daily to have a module in fourth year. That would be like, whether it's 12 weeks, if we did fucking like what, like a religion module, or we did like, what were those ones? Like career guides. We had these real stupid, like weekly, just weird, you know, that weird class you have once a week,
Yeah.
kind of like that, like not SPH, you know, everyone knows I'm talking about that kind of
Yeah,
class.
yeah.
I think it'd be deadly to have a module where it's like that 12 week, exactly what we're talking about on like our pods. Like, number one, the basics of hormones. Like, it's so funny how we learned biology, how the menstrual cycle works in biology. It's just so disconnected from what actually happens. Like, you know, where we're talking like, oh my God, girls, do you know your boobs were for your period? And we're like, yeah. We're like, yeah, well, that's a hormonal imbalance, instead of being like looking at the signs, because not everyone loves the way we love it. Like, so
I know.
I think having like a module where people were, and men as well, like, it's so important lads understand why women are feeling a certain way, or 5 days a month you can get pregnant, the potential side effects of being on the pill. I think it's so important to do that, like, and do it together, because it's so rare in society that we're not connected, like most, well, not everyone, but like if you're, you know, going to be living with a man like for, you know, most of your life, like, it's so key. If you're going to have a boy as a child who needs to understand potentially his future daughters or whatever it is, I think it's so important for men to understand it. But even like, I remember like my dad would, you know, he wouldn't be like, we have your period, or like, it's over that kind of hush hush.
Ew. That's literally what my brothers, my dad, my brothers, they're like, ew, periods. No, don't talk about that. I'm like,
yeah, like, don't talk about,
have a daughter.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we did have like that curriculum in school, or a module in school, where they go through 12 weeks and learn everything from between how your cycle works, how you deal with PMS, then looking at things like different types of birth control, STDs, contraceptives you can use. Like, you know, we literally showed us how to use a pot, and then that was it. And we were like,
I know.
like, and don't have sex because you will get pregnant. And that was literally
and die.
Like, and you will die. Exactly. You have sex and pregnant and die. So yeah, we definitely need to have something along the lines of that, just kind of more education around it.
Yeah, I think it's really important as well. I remember that shame. So like, I love on your podcast you were talking about the period chats, and it's just those kind of embarrassing stories. And I was thinking about today, I was like, what would be my embarrassing story with periods? And I was like, I remember actually staying over the lads, and was drunk, of course, and then I had my period, and I woke up and I had bled through, and I had his shorts on, so I had to sprint into the fucking bathroom, lock all the doors. I was so lucky I was woken up by like the summer natural daylight, because it was like 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. or something. He wasn't moving. I went into the bathroom and I had to like wring out his shorts, and like there was literally covered in fucking blood. Like go under the bath, leave them there, and I left them soaking wet there. They weren't going to dry, obviously. And then he texted me later being like, why did you like have my shorts so wet? And I just changed the subject. Like, such a thing that you can be like, yeah, I had my period and then a bit of a leak, and it's not really a big deal. It's literally like I blew my nose or I went to the toilet. It's the exact same thing. It's just bodily excretion, but at the time, but like that shame.
Yeah, and then basically moved to Bali because of that.
But literally, like, and even like from UTIs, anything that we had that were like we'd be like down there, like anything, there's so much shame, so much embarrassment, and even with ergo health as well. If we just were educated on this stuff, there wouldn't be so much shame. And I think that there's a lot to be done with that with Ireland and kind of the Catholic Church and stuff like that. And I think we're moving in the right direction, but even I want to chat on the podcast with someone else about like sex and pleasure and reconnecting as a female, and like not having that as such a taboo subject. Like, we are females, and like even with sex drive and stuff like that, like we, as a hormonal imbalance, if your libido is low, that is not normal. Like, that is something that needs to be investigated, or it could be as a result of the contraceptive pill as well, if you're on that, but can be like extremely high stress. And I remember at a point in time thinking that there was something wrong with me, that I was like, oh my God, I think I just don't like having sex. And it was like this feeling of shame and embarrassment that there was something wrong with me. And I remember then came off the pill, didn't have my period for a while, but when I eventually start getting my hormones turning back on, I remember even taking Damiana as a supplement, because I was like, I need a sex drive. This has to change. But it was like, once I got that back, I got my life back. I got my energy back within me, you know. It's like, experience these hormones in the way that they're meant to be experienced, and you will be a new fucking woman.
Your drive, like, it's so interesting, because in my consultation, should I have low libido, is one of my questions, and I swear, I say 8 out of 10 women will tick that, and a lot of women are in, like, I see girls in their 20s ticking that box. And the whole thing about sex drive is, it's not just you hopping into bed. Your sex drive is your zest for life. It's your get up and go, your motivation, your gym, your sex appeal, in terms of like, I'm a fucking ride, like, and that confidence, and that kind of, that's so key for day to day, like doing a daily workout in the gym. Like, do you know, I just think it's way more than just like, oh, I fancy my partner, like, kind of thing. It's so much more than that. So it's just, it's so key, so important. The thing about it is, like, you mentioned herb medicine there, I get asked all the time about herbs for sex drive. Do you imagine I came on Instagram and I was like, girls, have a fucking herbal tonic, it's absolutely deadly, trial and test it myself, so good, use are gonna be horny, lunatics on it. I would be living on a yacht in Marbella. Are you joking? Like, how well would that sell? Do you know what I mean? I'm like, I'm a
100%.
herbalist, blah blah blah, but like, that's not how it works. There's no herbs. Like, yes, herbs can support adrenals, you know, can potentially increase testosterone and things like that, but you have to look at the bigger picture. Like, it's like, if herb medicine works like that, people would be taking it. So, you know, don't be kind of like that. You were like, oh, I'm going to take this herb, completely ignoring like other factors. So
completely ignore my insomnia, my disordered eating, my over exercise, and you know, that's not the issue like, at all. It's
just low into mania.
What's up? But I think that's important as well. Stop trying to look for the thing that's going to fix you, the thing that's going to solve everything, all of your problems, because it doesn't exist. It's like, really look at everything holistically. Don't try to chase whatever it is, and just be honest with yourself. Like, I think it's really hard to do that sometimes, because if we're honest with ourselves, we realize, okay, maybe I'm not actually looking after myself. Maybe I don't even have myself on my priority list, never mind top of my priority list. So it's just really important to be compassionate with yourself when you are checking in with yourself, and understand that it's not a you problem. Sometimes it's just a case of one thing after the other that can get you into that situation. But the important thing is to be honest with yourself and decide how you're going to move forward. When you have that realization, you have the choice of getting reconnected to yourself, of getting back to doing those basics, like we said, the non-negotiables, having a look at your sleep, having a look at your stress. Have you got moments of space in your day to just fucking breathe and to just have a little bit of a conversation with yourself, or have a cup of tea in peace? You know, it's these basic things that we don't make time for, and you need to make time for yourself, because at the end of the day, nobody is going to do it for you. But last question, I had actually a lot of questions, and they were very specialized, and unfortunately, I suppose you would agree that we'd need to see people's history. We'd need to see like everything and anything. You can't just answer one question if you don't. It's like, okay, well, what's your digestion like? What's your mental health like? What's your sleep like? What supplements are you taking? Do you have fiber? Do you have protein? You know, there is a lot of things that we as nutritionists need to figure out, I suppose, to get to that root cause of what's actually driving that. We can, of course, give suggestions, but it might not be the answer that you're looking for. Last question. What advice would you give to your younger self? If you could give yourself maybe 1 to 3 pieces of advice.
Ooh, I do like this question. One is kind of word Graham, be careful of the people don't clap when you win, in terms of friends and things like that.
Okay, yes.
I think you'll learn so much, especially in your 20s. Yeah, like cut those fucking relationships out earlier. Does that make sense? Like, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a major one. They're giving a lot to people who don't give back. For me, there's that, like, follow your gut. I've always had this weird gut instinct. I love what you said, like, to start, like, I feel so aligned, stuff like that. Like, that is exactly how I feel. Like, I know exactly where I'm supposed to be. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. The path isn't always easy. Like, this year alone for me has been absolutely just mad. Like, it's been so much going on behind the scenes for me. Like, my personal life's just been so stressful, and like, here's me doing herbal medicine, doing everything else, but I still feel so content where I am, and I'm just like, okay, and just ignore the noise and ignore this, like, so much other things that are going on, and just in terms of social media and this nutritionist doing this and this doing this and doctor saying this, and I just hate that noise. I'm like, I'm where I'm supposed to be, and let's just keep going. And I've always had that real kind of gut instinct, so I'd be like, you're doing well, keep going with it. Like, even me leaving, so I left college, like, I was like like feeling like I was as a prefect in school, like absolutely follow the rules, never do anything wrong. And I did 2 years in DCU in sports science and health, and I dropped out of college. I'm a college dropout. Like it was the most difficult thing I've
oh my
ever.
God.
Like if you had told me 18-year-old self, she'd be like, what? So that was so hard for me. But I was like, no, this is not what I'm supposed to do. And kind of like really, really difficult. But again, like follow your gut. I know it's a real boring answer. But yeah, just keep doing what you're doing, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that's so important that even though you committed 2 years to something, you were like, no, it just does not feel right for me. And I think a lot of people are afraid to step away from that. Like I did my science degree, was in the industry like a year and a half or 2 years, was climbing the ladder, was doing really well, had the health insurance, had all these things that looked great on paper, but I was not happy in myself. And I knew there was something more for me. And it's difficult for you to kind of step out of the crowd, let's say, or the norm or what other people are doing, but you have to go with what's right for you. Like literally that's what's going to make you feel happy. And like you said, like not all your issues are solved. Like you're still having stress in your life, you're still very busy, you're not sitting back like on your, like you said, sipping margaritas. You're still experiencing challenges, but it's challenges that you were willing to face. It's like, what's that quote? It's like, with meaning it makes life bearable, or it makes struggle bearable, or something. I've absolutely butchered that quote. Like every quote I butcher, but it is having your why. But it's having your why and having that sense of purpose for yourself. And I think with purpose as well, a lot of people think you need to have some life-changing purpose, but it's not. It's just what's meaningful to you, what is lighting you up, what feels in alignment with you, and that's what's going to help you move forward and live an aligned life. Would you be spiritual at all?
Yeah, kind of. I'm really big into the universe. Like I definitely feel like I'm so guided for things. Like one of my favorite quotes is sometimes not getting what you want is a wonderful stroke of luck. So so many things happened to me. Like even just we were meant to get married in 2020. Obviously our wedding was 8 weeks out when like the 2-week flattened the curve kind of thing. And so we cancelled, but we rescheduled that wedding 4 times and we finally got married last September. And it was literally so we had 140 original wedding, our second wedding was 60 people. Like there was so many things that were different that I just was like, and I remember saying to my friend at the time, like, I can't wait for the wedding to be over to look back and like, this is why this happened. And it's just that's just like one example, but there's so many things that have happened that being like, God, if that didn't happen, this wouldn't be here now. And like, and even the hard times brings in a different path. They're like, oh my God, if that hadn't happened, this, so that I'm such a firm believer in that, like definitely in terms of like you're guided. Like I see mad signs, and number 22 literally, no, I wouldn't even say follows me, it haunts me to my core. I'm like, Joan, you're like ignoring something. I'm like, okay, I get it, like leave me alone. Like,
I see you, okay.
I see you, like leave me alone. There's something in my head like I need to do that and I don't do it, honestly. And this only last couple of years, I wouldn't be someone who I've always been like that. My best friend Hannah's really into like crystals, she loves her angel cards. She's kind of rubbed off me definitely the last couple of years, but like I remember like to Hannah, this number is haunting me. And she was like, oh, it's got, it's got to do alignment and you're on the right path and listen to your blah, blah, this kind of stuff. So I have kind of definitely more open the last couple of years, but definitely do feel like there's some massive higher power guiding you. So sometimes it's so easy to just be like, do you know what, I'm going to go with the flow because things will work out because that's the way it's supposed to be, do you know?
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, I love that. I'm going to take that quote because there's so much random ass shit going wrong for me lately that I'm like, there has to be some sort of amazing thing that's coming my way, and I'm welcoming it with open arms.
You can just hurry up now, please hurry up.
I'm just like, when the fuck is it going to happen? How many more things? Like literally last week I was recording the last podcast and I crashed in just before coming into the podcast today. I have lingering belly, and I'm just like, guys, like we can get to the main event now because your gal is getting tired. No, we're all good, we're healthy, we're happy, we've got a roof over our heads, things are good as well at the same time. But look, thank you so much for coming on. It's been such an enjoyable chat. Can you tell everyone where we can find you, maybe a little bit about your services?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram, Aok Nutrition. I also have my website, my clinic. We do online consultations, so we see clients from literally all over the world, which is amazing. I have 2 nutritionists who work alongside me as well. I have one amazing nutritionist, Katrina, who is an absolute wizard when it comes to fertility, female hormones. I was trying to find someone who's me multiplied by 2, and she is literally unbelievable. She does exactly that, even better. She's brilliant. And then another girl called Claire, who specializes in gut health. So if someone wants to book in, I have no appointments for next. Usually I'm booked up for 3 months. So that's the only problem. That's why I need to get other people on my team. And I have 2 amazing ladies working with me now. And I also have a podcast as well called Spilling the Tea with Aok Nutrition, where like that deep dive into all things hormones. I kind of do it like little like mini episodes where just real specific topics. And then like what I was saying, I have a series called Period Chats where I had like different guests on. It's just having the absolute chat about your first period, talking about period stories, which I actually just love doing that because we all have like that. I loved your story. We all have that story. And I think like that, like chatting to your girls about it, like there's always gas things that come up. So yeah, that's where you get me. And you can always email me as well. All my links are in my Instagram bio. Yeah, thank you so much. It's such a lovely chat. It was so good to talk to you today. Thanks so much for having me on.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Make sure to go give Aisling some love over on the gram. She is amazing at what she does. And like I said, I've learned so much from you over the years. It's been amazing. And yeah, if you liked this episode and you found it valuable, share it with a fellow gal. Give it an L review or like or whatever on your stories. And yeah, thank you so much for coming. Bye.